This is what the F happened, a week in review of what's going on in the markets and how you're investing your money based on what the market and the news is telling you. So the question is are you doing the right thing? We're going to talk about it. We're going to rant. We're going to rave. Hell, we're going to get in arguments with you and other people about what's going on out there, because that's what this is all about. Hey, it's what the F happened, and you're about to witness it. Join me. All right, everybody, what is up? We are back at it for another shit show today for what the F happened, a week in review of the markets. And I'll tell you, we have no lack of nonsense going on out there right now in the market. So we've got everybody streaming here. We've got Instagram, we've got Facebook, we've got YouTube, and I've got my two colleagues with me. We're going to have a blast. We got Dennis Shapiro, who's joining us as a one-off today. And, you know, he's kind of joining us in a crazy morning he was having. But Dennis, just so everybody knows, he wrote a book called The Alternative Investment Almanac. You guys should check that book out. And he's going to provide some really good insight to some of this stuff because he wrote a book on that exact topic. And then we've got the one, the only, Stephen Nagy. What's up, gentlemen?
Hey, what's up, Chris? Happy birthday. It's his birthday.
I want to go into the next topic, Stephen, and the next topic is New York Times. You know, I think New York Times figured something out here, and this is an important topic. So hear me out, folks, and I want you all to comment, whether you're coming in from YouTube, whether you're coming in from Facebook, or you're coming in from Instagram. I need to know your take on this because this right here, New York Times, they just cracked the code, or so those idiots think they did. Let's figure it out. So here's the deal. New York Times reports. Work half the hours, hire twice the employees. If everybody worked less, though, it would be easier to spread the work out evenly to more people. If white-collar professionals were no longer expected or required to log 60 hours a week, but 30 instead, that would be a whole extra job for somebody else. What is your take on this? What the F? That's what
I'll let Dennis go with this one because I think I ranted to you last week when I saw this article come out on just what a dumpster fire the New York Times in general is, in my opinion. But Dennis, what do you think about the idea of big corporations hiring all the people and making them work half the hour so we get more people employed? And I don't know. You tell me what you think. Will that work?
Probably not. So I didn't hear the story, but while you were saying it, there's two things that come to mind. One is the mastery principle. You need a certain amount of hours to become truly good at what you do. Like if I wouldn't want a part-time lawyer, handling my security fund. You know what I mean? Just for the sake that two lawyers could be hired at the same time. So one concept is, or hey, if I need heart surgery, I don't want it to be a part-time heart surgery. I want it to be a heart surgeon who does surgery 60 hours a week at least. So I think in that principle, I think they're wrong. And the second principle, I would say, just strictly, it's so like you can't generalize this across the board. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, maybe this is fine in the fast food industry. I don't want to generalize too much. But once you get to the professionals, I don't think this can possibly actually work. And why limit someone who actually wants to work more? Some people enjoy working, and if they do, and some people don't, it should be a choice. And if you enjoy it and you're good at it, you should capitalize on that.
Yeah, this is one that just really shows you how genius the New York Times really is. I think the New York Times, unfortunately, it might have been a good paper back in the day. I think they really just need to just fold that shop up because I don't know what they're talking about.
One of the reasons we have Dennis on here talking about things like Bitcoin and everything that's going on is he wrote a really cool book called The Alternative Investment Almanac. And I just downloaded it on my Kindle. So I haven't had a chance to read it yet, Dennis. I got some trips coming up. I'm going to read it on the planes. But can you tell us just a little bit about the book you wrote?
Yeah, so I've been investing in traditional stocks for like 20 years, and I've been investing in alternative assets for like 10 years. And the more I got into alternative assets, I realized how short-sighted some people are. Some people are just super like, hey, it's either this or this way is better than this way, or this asset is my favorite. I made so much money investing here. And what I realized is that once you get into the alternative investment world, there are certain like core competencies that apply across the investment board. Most of the stuff I do is real estate related. It's mostly commercial real estate, but I also try to invest in some life insurance, like the infinite banking concept and actual life insurance settlements. So most of it is high quality commercial real estate mixed in with some life insurance policy. That's kind of what I consider alternative assets. So I wanted to write a book where too many times where I was talking to people in my older network and they were like, oh, I don't invest in alternative assets because aren't they all Ponzi schemes? And, isn't that how you lose money? Blah, 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 blah. And then I was talking to people who only did alternative assets and they were like, oh, I don't invest in stocks and bonds because, real estate is so much better. So I wanted to write a book where it says, hey, look, if you could autopilot your traditional portfolio with, a low cost index fund, then you could spend a shitload of time building out a network, learning due diligence, and learning how to make real money off your alternative assets. And then if you marry the two, you could have like a really nice portfolio. And I just wanted to get that message out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got a couple more topics. But before that, I like to, rant a little bit. I'm from New York. I like to get in a good argument from time to time. And, I just got a comment that just came in from Instagram. I want to hit this one. K-Walk, I think it's K-Walker or whatever. Don't you have to be a licensed professional to be a money mentor and provide actual advice? All right, so Smarty Pants. I was a financial advisor for 16 years at a high level. Gave up and sold my practice in 2018. And when I say I gave up, I just got sick of it. And I also had another opportunity to get a show on HGTV. So I sold my practice. I let my licenses expire. So a money mentor. So here, I will agree with you, Kay Walker. Do you have to be a licensed advisor to give stock advice? Absolutely. Are we giving stock advice or are we just picking on news articles? We're not telling you to buy something. We're not telling you to sell something. We might on occasion talk about what we're buying, but we're not telling you to buy anything. So either you got up on the wrong side of the bed, you need to get yourself a Starbucks coffee, or you just need to just get off of this because that comment is bullshit. And this is what the F happened. What the F happened to you to make you so angry? Why don't you give us some good advice, huh? Is your good advice buy into the FOMO, buy into the stock market? It's going to go to the moon? Piss off, asshole. All right, on to the next topic. So that's what we do here at What the F. If you don't like it, get off. We don't really care. We're here to provide some entertainment. We're here to talk about the news of the past week, and we're here to actually have some fun. Look at that. People love that. People love when people argue, don't they? All right. What do we got next? Chris for president. That's next. I got to post that one. Thanks, buddy. And this whole thing goes down. But anyway, let's get into the next topic. I just wanted to hit on that. NBA. So how many of you like the NBA in basketball? Dennis, you a basketball fan?
Yeah, I was a basketball player when I was younger, high school basketball, and yeah, definitely follow along.
Fantastic. Well, let's talk about this.
So this article, just to clear, this article is a little bit older. This actually happened several years ago, but it's just a fascinating article. We've been talking a lot in the Private Money Club. So the Private Money Club is a membership that Chris and I run that connects borrowers with lenders and lenders with borrowers. So if you're doing like a flip, for instance, and you need some money to be able to buy that flip, get the rehab done and sell it, well, we can match, you can match up with a private lender, somebody that has some money, maybe in a self-directed IRA or an infinite banking policy, and they're looking to grow their wealth, but they don't want to invest in the stock market. We're at all-time highs. So maybe they're a little worried about that. So what do? Well, they look at these quick flips. Maybe that makes sense. So this lender lends their money to borrow. And that's what the Private Money Club essentially is all about, is a network that connects lenders and borrowers. So we've been talking a lot about contracts lately, how to protect your money, because it's all in the contract, right? Contracts have a purpose. Contracts are very powerful. Well, this is a great example of that. That's why I wanted to bring it up. This was something that happened back when the NBA was merging with the, what was it, the ABA or whatever the American Basketball Association league was back then. So there was the St. Louis Spirits, and these guys, they would not leave the ABA. They wouldn't allow the merger to happen. They said, we're going to hold out. We're going to hold out. So what they did is they created a contract where basically the NBA was going to buy them out to get rid of the St. Louis Spirits. Okay. So they were going to get rid of the basketball team, buy them out through this contract. But what these guys did that had the Spirits is they worked into their contract the verbiage in perpetuity. And what they wrote that on was they were going to get about 2% of total revenue for all television rights. However, this was back in the, I don't know what, 50s, 60s, 70s, whenever this merger occurred, where TV was not really a thing yet. So the NBA didn't have the wherewithal to think, well, TV might get more and more popular where, hey, more and more of our revenue might come from TV ads and whatnot. But they didn't think about that. So these guys snuck the words in there, in perpetuity on TV rights, about 2% of total NBA into that contract. So they started making hundreds of millions of dollars to the point where the NBA said, okay, you guys have made $300 million off of us. This isn't going away. We're going to buy you out. Here's $500 million just to buy you out of this contract. So these guys made $800 million by simply having the foresight that, hey, maybe TV will take off in the future, and let's sneak this into the contract where we can make a lot of money. So just a fascinating story on, even what we were talking about with Tesla, like you got to be able to see the future sometimes, and then you got to understand contracts. I love it.
Absolutely. So like you can either hate on these two brothers for what they did, or you can sit there and say, wow, that was really smart and really foolish of the NBA not to catch that in the contract. So Dennis, you played basketball. What's your take on this? Do you wish you were these guys?
I think it's brilliant. I think it's like that phrase, like you need to be lucky, but you need to do the right things to get lucky. There is a chance that, TV would have been like the VCR and had or what was the 8-track, whatever it is, that had a couple of days in the sun and then something else kind of came on. But, they threw in something like, hey, what the F, let's just throw it in there. If they kibosh it, we're probably going to take the deal anyway. They ended up not, and they ended up getting a lottery ticket. It was pretty brilliant of them.
And ballsy. It took some balls for them to get to that point too. But you know what? You can either hate on people like that because you think, oh, they cheated the system, they did something wrong. No, they were pretty smart about how they did it. So, again, we're not talking about the NBA. We're just talking about money. And that right there, that's not luck. Like that is, to me, that's brilliant what they did. And I think it was worth bringing up, Stephen. Thanks for sending that article over. So let's see. What else can we talk about here? There's so much going on in the markets right now. I mean, let's see. Tesla B top. Oh, this one's a good one. Let's talk about Philip Morris. I've always loved Philip Morris as a defensive stock. Now, I don't like what Philip Morris does because obviously they the cigarettes and everything else. So you can have your ethical standpoint, but if you're an investor, you invest to make money. So looking at Philip Morris and their dividend they paid out, they've always been a great defensive play that paid a high dividend. It's always been a really solid stock. But Marlboro maker Philip Morris may stop selling cigarettes in Britain within 10 years. The CEO says cigarettes should be banned. The CEO, hear me out. The CEO of Philip Morris says cigarettes should be banned. Well, what are they going to sell next? Nicotine patches? Like, are they going to diversify what they're doing? Is that going to affect the company's stock, their dividend? I mean, what are your takes on Philip Morris and them going public on CNBC saying something like this? Crazy.
I could jump in. This is kind of like did you guys remember the first Iron Man? When he comes back and then he's after he gets kidnapped or whatever it is, and he escapes, and then he comes and then he realizes that Stark Enterprise was selling, and then he comes back and he has this press conference and he says, Stark Enterprise, which is like the radon of today, it says we're not going to be just selling weapons anymore.
I came to realize that I have more to offer this world than just making things that blow up, and that is why, effective immediately, I am shutting down the weapons manufacturer division of Stark International.
And then you see Jim Cramer going, sell, whatever it is. That's kind of similar like that a little bit. But then clearly they're going to go the whole vapor route and, maybe metals, maybe like marijuana, cannabis, or
Bingo.
Something like that. That's probably where they're going to go with it. So I'm sure that's the mindset, just, cigarettes 2.0 type of thing.
So I love that you mentioned that. And, there's a bunch of people commenting in, but this is kind of where I was going. So I remember many years ago before, marijuana was made legal to, in most, I think is it legal in every state now? Or I know New York finally got it, which I thought wasn't going to happen. But anyway, it's legal in most states. Philip Morris, you could see that they were actually going down the cannabis route. They weren't going to just make cigarettes. They were going to make, weed cigarettes or whatever you want to call them. And I think that's the direction they're going to go. But, they're still on hold. So they said 10 years they're going to stop selling cigarettes. But what are they going to sell? Weed cigarettes, of course. Duh. Like they're not going to probably focus too much on nicotine patches. They might use that to bridge the gap. But yeah, they're going the route of marijuana, cannabis, and all of that. Probably a better.
I was gonna say, I know a lot of growers out in California, and one of their largest challenges right now is competing to buy land to grow more marijuana, because Philip Morris is coming in, buying millions and millions of acres that they're planning to grow on in the future. So they're definitely, and this has been going on for 10 years. I haven't really even kept up with it in the last couple of years. This was 10 years ago. So they're definitely positioning themselves to be the leader in marijuana when it goes legal.
Yeah, and I think that's a brilliant play. And a company like Philip Morris has the resources, the stockpiled cash to literally sit there, wait for it and plan everything out. So literally, they'll probably, when this whole thing does go legal federally, I think at that point, they literally will be the leader in that. And I think a lot of people will be trying to catch them, because silently behind the scenes, they've been probably putting a lot of resources to that. So again, Philip Morris, like I've always respected the company, the way they run it. I don't, ethically, I don't smoke. I hate that my mother smokes, but hey, sometimes you just got to kind of put that aside and decide, is that going to stop me from investing in a solidly run, financially stable, and fundamentally solid company? Well, that's for all of you to decide, but I think that's a good one. So now I think let's, in this final thing here, Dennis, I definitely want you to chime in. And audience, everybody, whether you're on Instagram, you're on YouTube, you're on Facebook, all of you coming into What the F Happened, a weekly show where we rant and rave about what happened in the markets in the week prior. This is an important topic. We're already seeing it in the markets. The CDC, Fauci, the government, all of them are now kind of going back on this Delta variant, which I don't have a standpoint on this. I'm not a scientist or an expert, and everybody has their own opinion, but the markets are showing very strong signs of fear of us going back to where we were with this COVID thing. They're now reversing some of the mask mandates. Certain places like California, you have to have a mask on inside, and what's going to happen? Are we going to have like a passport where it says whether you're unvaccinated or vaccinated? I feel like, it was the race thing. Now all of a sudden that's not really talked about. Now it's like vaccinated against unvaccinated. Like, I don't know what they're doing, but it all leads to, in my mind, that we might be going back to some of the restrictions that we had, the controls. And I know this is a controversial topic, and I don't want to make this political, and I don't want to make this about anyone's opinion. I really want to just think, if they do this, what is that going to mean for the stock market? We know the stock market's at an all-time high. It's at a very fragile state right now. Is this going to maybe be the domino that does that first 50% corrective drop? Because, hey, folks, listen, if you study the market for as long as I have, if you know what I know by studying the past, the first drop, that first hit when the market takes that dive is the worst. And nobody's going to be ready for it. You weren't ready for it last year when the COVID thing happened. You weren't ready for it in 2008 and 2009. Like, are you ready for it this time? And is this the domino that brings the whole thing down? What are your guys' takes on this?
Dennis, I'll let you start.
Well, not to go like political, I'll just say from like, the great part about like history is like, you don't have to go far on this, right? What happened in March 2020. So what was really important is how is your portfolio structured, where if you are going to get a similar, 35% correction, are you going to be able to handle it? Because you shouldn't have an excuse not to be prepared this time. So like, for example, I invested in REITs at that time and they were down 35%. And it wasn't like the value of the real estate was down 35%. It was publicly traded. And the, Wall Street experts assume that, in a year's time, whatever it is on future earnings, that the future earnings will take a drop of 35%. So, hey, why don't we just sell 35% now? So in the month of March 2020, across the board, you see the REITs down 35%. Now, on the alternative investment side, I owned a lot of private securities and in individual apartment buildings. Those things didn't trade hands. The moment that, the COVID restrictions happened, there was just so much uncertainty where you couldn't buy an apartment building for a discount enough to warrant buying it. And then so the buyers couldn't find enough discount. The sellers were saying, well, this isn't as bad as they're saying it is. We're going to hold on to it. And that level of not finding an accord, basically nothing traded hands. So on one side of my portfolio, I was seeing it down 35% with traditional, REITs that are supposed to be somewhat defensive because of their high yields, and private securities weren't trading hands. So they were by default down 0. So I think when you get into positions where this kind of chatter comes in, and like you said, hey, there's 35% chance of a meltdown, then what you really need to do is like, hey, how are you positioned on your portfolio? Because you'll feel a lot better with a 35% meltdown if it only affects a portion of your portfolio. Because then you could kind of sit there, and if it's not that bad, then you're fine. But the point is, like, you want to look at alternative investments in situations like this, because it can really mitigate the volatility you'll get from just being all in on the market.
Absolutely. And, we're going to be talking about that a lot today on our wealth webinar at 1 p.m., which is a free webinar we do every single Wednesday. Hundreds of people join us each week. It is totally free. I'll put the link up here on Facebook and all those, and on Instagram. I'll put it up in a second. But we're going to be talking about, ways to do exactly that. Position yourself in alternatives that will either give you, complete defensive against a market fallout, or at least protect you a little bit and provide liquidity. And that's the biggest thing. If this is what's going on, I don't think this is going to stop. It's all about control, and we if you don't believe that, like, I don't know what rock you're living under. The government wants control, and this is how they do it. Now, I know that, deep down, I think there's some level of them trying to protect things, but I don't know. You got to kind of draw the line in the sand. Can we go back to what happened last year and survive that?
I don't think so, Chris. I don't think we're going to get lockdowns. I don't think people are going to go for it. I don't think people are going to allow it to happen again. I mean, you look at New York City, which was the epidemic. Which was the epicenter of the world at one point. I mean, they had most cases, deaths, everything. New York City, not even, I think it's still at like 40% of all health workers in New York City are still not even vaccinated. So why are they not getting it? Like, they're fed up with being told what to do, when to do it, when you got to wear a mask, when you don't. I think some people will comply. The ultra, let me believe everything that's being, I think most people are done with it though. So I think because of that, I don't think it's going to affect the markets right now. As hard as they're going to push these masks, this is going to pass over. And I don't see this being the catalyst, my opinion.
Yeah, I got no problem putting a mask on. Like, I fly a lot. I've been flying straight through the pandemic. I test every single week with my own stash of the little swab tests. Those things freaking suck. And the antibody test, the blood test. But, for every single person, like, I think you're right. I think we're a lot of us are totally done with this. We don't want to be told what to do, and I think a lot of times they don't give us enough credit for being smart. Each person can make their own decisions and do it in a smart way. But yeah, I don't know. You're right. I don't know if this is going to be the domino that brings the thing down. But again, there's so many dominoes out there, and it's just, you look out there and you're just like, wow, which one of these dominoes is going to be the one that creates the domino effect? And that will happen. I mean, Michael's saying it on Instagram here. Benjamin's making a comment on that. It's just a very dangerous time for investors, and it resembles 1929 to a T. Literally, the FOMO, the euphoria, everybody buying into it, just following, the leader and just jumping into it. It's a very dangerous thing to do right now. I mean, there's a lot on the line. There's people's retirements, college savings plans on the line. You got to be very careful in what you're doing and decide what you're willing to risk and what you could afford to lose, because that is a real question. We all know that something's coming. The hard part is nobody can tell you when. Not the smartest minds in the business, not the Ray Dalios of Bridgewater Capital. They can't time the market. Neither can you. None of us can. And if they try to, you'll be wrong, just like the best have been. So Dennis, as we wrap this thing up, what is your take on people that try to time the market, that try to, stay in the market for the longest period because they're like, oh, well, when the market drops, I'll get out. How does that strategy weigh, and how do you think that could be? Anyway, go with that.
It's not a strategy. You can't do it. You just got to have a plan. You execute your plan. If you like, I like that phrase where it says the best time to invest is yesterday. The second best time is today. Even if and I think there's been studies, like, even if you invested during the Great Depression, you would have made a killing. Obviously you need the capital to do so. So I just think it's like, if you're just smart with your money, you can't time it. Just be smart with your money. That's it.
I think that's a good way to say it. I think you got to be smart with your money, be smart with your head, and understand that something's coming and get ready for it, but you can't time it. So, for me, I'm out. Like, outside of my private hedge fund, I have very little exposure. I've got some crypto, but I just trade that limit. I've got a couple little things, but most of my money right now is in privatized banking. The infinite banking concept is what I use to process. A lot of my money is in 20 and 30-year treasuries. I had oil, but I got out of that already, and a little bit of gold mining. And that's about the only things I'm putting my money in, which is definitely something a lot of people call me crazy for doing. They're like, wow, you're missing out. Yeah, I'm missing out. But, back when COVID happened and the market fell 35%, I wasn't missing out on anything. I was buying. I bought so many stocks then and I sold them all. And people still said, you're crazy for selling them. Well, each person needs to come up with a strategy, and the strategy should not always just include what you're going to buy. It should include what I want to make and where my exit is. If you don't have both sides of those equation written in an investment plan for your money, you are literally a risky driver. Get in your car, put a blindfold on, and go out there and drive. And tell me how far you go before you hit a house, another car, or a mailbox. Not very far. Don't drive with a blindfold on.
Unless you're in a Tesla.
Money. Unless you're in a Tesla. Then the technology kicks in and, hey, the car will just drive you wherever you want to go.
Same.
So, well, all right. Well, with that being said, folks, that is a wrap with What the F Happened, a weekly show where we talk about the markets in review. Thanks for playing, folks. Thanks for ranting. Thanks for arguing. Whatever side you were on, we love you guys. Join us next week. Same great time. Same great place. So thanks so much for joining us, Dennis. It was a real honor to have you on here. And Dennis, can you just do another real quick plug for your book?
Sure. So if you go on Amazon, if you just search Dennis Shapiro or the Alternative Investment Almanac, it's probably easier to just search for Dennis Shapiro. Dennis with one N, so it's DENIS, Shapiro, SHAPIRO. It should come up. It's like a blue cover. The Alternative Investment Almanac, expert insights on building personal wealth in non-traditional ways. And you could also reach out to me on my website, sihcapitalgroup.com.
Awesome, Dennis. Well, thanks for joining us for the show. And all of you, thank you for joining us. We'll see you very soon. Have a good day. All right, if you like that video, make sure you check out this video right now. And also, don't forget, subscribe to my channel. And don't ever forget to smash that alert button. We'll see you on the next one.